Welcome to this Tool album review. Nah, it's Doom 3, but seriously, the music sounds so much like Tool. For the record, no pun intended, the music for Doom 3 was produced by former Nine Inch Nails drummer Chris Vrenna and composed by Clint Walsh of Tweaker. So, Doom 3. It's the one that stands out from the other Doom games. The first time I played it, I thought, this game doesn't know what it wants to be. A first-person shooter? A horror game? I guess it's hard to transform an old game into a modern game without losing its identity. In my mind, the first two Doom games were fast-paced, blasted heavy metal, were very violent and made me feel like a badass. They pushed the boundaries of what games were and what they could do in regards to graphics, but also atmosphere and gameplay. It's easy to be Captain Hindsight and say that Doom 3 failed at being Doom, while Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal nailed modernizing the concept. However, I think Doom 3 did what id Software achieved with the first Doom. It tried something new and it pushed boundaries. They failed at retaining the Doom identity, but that doesn't necessarily make it a bad game. They focused solely on Doom's aspect of horror and the scary parts instead of the full package. So I find it best not to think of it as a Doom game and instead just enjoy it for what it is. A technically impressive first-person shooter with a lot of survival horror influences. With that said, let's move on. I'm playing the BFG Edition from Steam and it works straight up without any effort. So instead I'll use this space to talk about why I chose the BFG Edition over the vanilla Doom 3. I know people have different opinions on this and this is just my preference. I was very annoyed by the vanilla version's flashlight. In case you don't know, in the original you were not able to use a flashlight and a gun simultaneously, which is just silly. And honestly, I disliked Doom 3 a lot for this reason when it came out. In the BFG Edition, you can wield any weapon and a flashlight at the same time, but the trade-off is that the flashlight runs out and has to recharge, which works nicely. As a bonus, the BFG Edition features enhanced graphics and audio and includes Doom 1 and 2 and the expansion packs for Doom 3 called Resurrection of Evil and The Last Mission. Last but not least, the BFG Edition has a VR mod, which I tried. It's really cool and you should check it out if you have a VR headset. I'll only be covering the base game of Doom 3 today though. Doom doesn't need a story or much of a background, but here's what Doom 3 gives us in that department. The intro cinematic tells us about a mega corporation focused on research called the Union Aerospace Corporation, or UAC. They have unlimited resources and operates without legal or moral restrictions, which is never a good idea. Our character arrives at the UAC research facility on Mars along with two other characters, Counselor Swan and his bodyguard. They are here to talk to someone called Betruger, and this is where our game begins.
Welcome to Mars. All new arrivals need to check in at reception.
Welcome to Mars City, Union Aerospace's premier research facility. To expedite your processing, please...
As we take our first steps on Mars, I find this to be a very interesting place that I'd like to explore. But it doesn't take long before we notice something that's just not right, as we just heard. I think the game still looks good after all these years. The lighting effects are especially well done, as is the sound design. Textures are low-res and character models are very bulky, but nothing that's really an issue. Another short cinematic starts and we receive our PDA, which is crucial if you want to learn more about the world around you. You'll pick up other people's PDAs throughout the game that fills in most of the lore and also gives you codes to resource lockers that can be very valuable. And most importantly, it works as a keycard that unlocks doors necessary to progress if you have the right PDA. Shortly thereafter, another cinematic starts, which gives us a bit more information. It seems that the two new arrivals are from corporate and have come to check out a bunch of complaints from workers. The evil-looking guy is Dr. Betruger, and he makes excuses and says he should have a larger staff and more resources. He also makes a foreshadowing promise.
Just stay out of my way. Amazing things will happen here soon. You just wait.
As we continue on to the Marine HQ, several soldiers and civilians talk about strange happenings. The game really hammers home the feeling of unease among the staff. No matter how eerie things might be though, playing Super Turbo Turkey Puncher 3 is mandatory. Whew, I felt like Eminem there for a second. Anyways, we finally arrive at the HQ and we get yelled at by our boss for playing too much Super Turbo Turkey Puncher 3. Oh, and it tells us to follow this sentry and go find and bring back the scientist guy. Well, it's probably not that important. After following the sentry, we enter the Mars City underground and get our hands on the pistol. There are civilians down there, so we can't start shooting just yet. There's more ominous dialogue from the civilians. Tensions are high and it serves as a nice build-up.
Hey! You're looking for the scientist, right? I'm not sure you want to find him. You see, Never mind.
We find our first security code in a PDA that opens up a supply locker. This is a recurring gameplay loop in Doom 3 and it works well and they're easy to find. To reach another building, we have to take a short walk on the outside on the Mars surface. The sound effects and the depleting oxygen makes the outside sections feel stressful and tense in a good way. All of the things you have to manage reinforces the survival horror aspects of the game. So we finally find the lost scientist and things get interesting.
Huh? No, no, please. You must let me get this communication out. They have to be warned while there is still time. I can't let... You don't know what I've seen. You can't possibly understand or comprehend.
The devil is real.
I know. He built his cage.
I'm getting abnormal readings here. This is bad.
God!
We can't hold these levels. We're losing it!
Help us!
Structural integrity at risk.
This checkpoint save that pauses the game is one of the worst things about the BFG Edition, but I'll take it as the good stuff outweighs the bad. Anyways, the portal to hell seems to be wide open and people are being possessed right before our very eyes. It's a pretty cool scene. Now we have to backtrack to the Marine HQ and regroup with the others. And if you thought the game was kinda spooky up until now, this is gonna be next level stuff. They nail the horror aspect and makes you paranoid in no time. I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, expecting an enemy at any time. But sometimes I get surprised.
Secure the area.
We just got a new weapon as you saw, the shotgun. It's nice up close but almost useless on anything else. Doom is good at making you use the right tool for the right job, so I'm okay with this. And a new weapon also means a new enemy type. Let's say hello to the Imp. I like the little intro cinematics the new enemies get. It kinda reminds me of how Unreal introduced new enemies. Let's talk a bit about Doom's pacing. New enemies and weapons are introduced at a nice pace. Just before things get stale, something new gets introduced. It's pretty spot on. What I don't like though is that for way too long everything looks and feels the same. The same old high-tech looking hallway after hallway, the same jump scare and monster closet after another. The game rarely breaks its monotony and I wish they did more interesting things to mix it up. Let's check out a few examples of what the game does way too little of during this part of the game. At one point you have to follow a guy with the light. It mixes tension with sudden bursts of frantic combat.
Kill it!
And this is not the best puzzle section of a game, but it's nice to do something else for a little while.
Please escort your companion cube to the Aperture Science Emergency Intelligence Incinerator.
And this is perhaps my favorite. You get trapped in a room with poisonous gas coming in. It forces you to move fast as your health drops, and enemies spawn in to make it even more tense. And last but not least, boss fights. There are 4 different boss types in Doom and they're all pretty cool and terrifying. This is the first one you'll encounter and it's called the Vagary. The other bosses start showing up when the game really mixes things up in a good way. Doom gets progressively harder and at times it's absolutely chaotic, and for me this is Doom 3 at its finest. Keep in mind that I'm brushing over a lot of the game here, I'm just focusing on what I think are the key parts. With that said, let's continue to hell. But first, these 2 guys are in their way. With the 2 Hell Knights defeated, Dr. Betruger shows us some clips of his latest colonoscopy, as he teleports us to Hell. Betruger's home video has left us dazed and confused, and we start our journey in Hell with none of our weapons, but thankfully a little starter kit is quickly found. Hell is a great addition to Doom 3, and it's largely because it's less claustrophobic and gives us a bit more space to fight in, which makes combat feel different and gives way for other tactics. Oh, and the stamina bar doesn't exist in Hell, which is strange and never really explained. Anyway, those things in addition to the change of scenery makes it feel much more like the Doom we know from the first 2 games. The game has definitely been good up to this point, but mixing things up was overdue. And talking about the change of scenery, it's really something. The evil aesthetic of this place is truly a sight to behold. I'm positive that Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal took notes. After some satisfactory slaughtering in Hell, we get to this portal.
Save us.
This boss is called the Guardian of Hell, and we need to defeat it in order to retrieve that weird box thing. It's one of those bosses that can only be damaged by killing the flying minions, thereby revealing its weak spot, shooting it and repeating the process. It's not my favorite boss fight mechanic, but at least the boss looks pretty cool.
We are many. We are one. We are the Brilliant Thor. You know us as the Soul Cube. Free us from our eternal prison, and we will help you. Vanquish our enemies, and we grow stronger. Listen for our call, and then free us to smite down the evil.
So this thing is called the Soul Cube, and it's our new weapon and companion. It's supposedly the only thing that can defeat Hell's mightiest warrior. The Soul Cube charges up by us killing enemies, and every 5 kills it becomes ready for use. It's really handy and does a lot of damage, one-shotting most normal enemies if hit directly. Okay, moving on. With the newfound cube, we can now return to Mars through the teleport which we came and perhaps face Betruger. Upon returning to Mars, Betruger tells us that it no longer needs the teleporter, that Hell has created its own way of reaching Mars without it. It's clear that we have to shut it down ASAP. Soon after entering the level, we get a pretty tough fight with several Archviles and Commandos at the same time. As the game progresses, we face increasingly different enemies spawn in at the same time, and it makes the game way harder, as it should. find Counselor Swan dying, but he gives us his PDA and tells us that our boss Sarge has become possessed and that his bodyguard is hunting him down. He also reveals that Hell is trying to get to Earth itself via a fleet being dispatched, and once again, it's up to us to stop it. After running all over the place to fix a door panel and hearing evil whispers saying Sarge is coming, we find Campbell, the bodyguard.
Find him. Gotta find him. My gun. He's got my gun.
Try to guess which gun Sarge has stolen from him. We get the answer in an infomercial not long after.
The BFG 9000 contains sophisticated friend or foe technology that discriminates targets in real time. Each projectile contains a small but very powerful computer core that actively maintains targeting and delivers a stream charge down each beam to soften targets before detonation. The detonation stage of the projectile is devastating.
So it's time to fight Sarge then. It's crucial to shoot the green projectiles as fast as possible. They do a lot of damage, but he's not that tough, and with the help of the Soul Cube, Sarge is swiftly dealt with. And we get his stolen BFG. Unless you're playing on a very high difficulty level, the BFG is not really necessary, but it's fun nonetheless. We're near the end and it shows. There's way more fighting than earlier in the game. It's less tension and more action, but it also throws in some more lore. We find this ancient Martian prophecy where the Doom guy is depicted as the savior. It's somewhat interesting but pretty vague. It adds a little mystique to the Slaughterfest though. After some more fighting and environmental puzzles, we finally reach the primary excavation site, the last level. It looks really cool and parts are heavily inspired by the first Alien movie. We also get the last pieces of lore. It basically sums up the information we gathered so far. Ancient Martians, prophecy, Doom guy, Soul Cube, final boss, yada yada yada. And now it's time to face the final boss. It's the Cyber Demon. He's a big boy, and our weapons can't hurt him. Luckily for us, the prophecy told us that the Soul Cube should do the trick, so let's try. That means running away, killing 5 minions to recharge the cube, and then attacking the Cyber Demon again. It might seem simple, but be careful, he can one-shot you if he gets too close. You get the point. Let's cut to the killing blow. That's it. So, a team of Marines swoop in and mop up the leftovers. But where is Dr. Betruger?
Echo 1, this is Recon Zulu. We've got massive damage all over the base. This place looks like hell. I've got life signs on the bioscanner. Eyes sharp. Echo 1, we've got a survivor, a Marine. Corporal, you hear me? You alright? Can you hear me? Echo 1, this is Recon Zulu. Prepare for medevac. Copy that. Have you located Counselor Swan? Yes, sir. He's dead. Roger, Recon 1. What about Dr. Betruger? He's nowhere to be found, sir.
Yeah, shocker, right? So that's the setup for Doom 3's expansion, Resurrection of Evil. Maybe I'll cover it some other day. Before we conclude this video, I have to point out the Half-Life inspirations. Half-Life is one of the most important games of all times, and its influences can vaguely be seen in many games. In Doom 3, however, it's blatantly obvious. Let me show you. There's a peaceful period before the action starts in both games, and they both feature foreshadowing, a sense that something's not right. You're free to walk around and interact with some NPCs, while others only make a short appearance and you don't really know what's going on with them and how they connect to the story. They reappear throughout the game and can't be interacted with much. Counselor Swan and Dr. Betruger fills the shoes of G-Man on this account. They both feature levels where you can go back and forth between them, and it's sometimes required too. Both games basically feature the same trigger mechanic, an experiment gone wrong, followed by teleportation of alien creatures into our world. I'm pretty sure I've seen this elevator somewhere before. This one might be a bit of a stretch, but the on-rail section in Doom reminds me of the famous Half-Life level. In both games, you need a vehicle to progress, but you also have to jump off to remove obstacles in order to progress. Alright, to me, the influences of Half-Life can be seen many places, but enough comparing, so let's finish this one off. In short, Doom 3 is pretty great, and I strongly recommend that you check it out. If you bounced off it when it was released, give the BFG Edition a try, it worked for me. Thank you very much for watching this video.